So nice to have you back. We have a neighbor that I think it's very important that you meet because he is, well, he's different. And I think the world is made up of different people, and that's what makes our world so interesting. God's house has many mansions, and the world has many people and mansions in this world that we need to get to know. So I have invited Thorgo, and Thorgo is a Wiccan, and he is the high priest in the Lushede tradition. Wicca is his religion. Not his whole life, but his religion. And yes. I wanted to give you an opportunity, because I didn't know much about it either. And when I heard about Thorgo, I thought, we have to introduce him to all the neighbors in our county, because he is somebody that they probably would not have a chance to know. And Wicca is a religion that they may know very little about, and it would be nice to know more. So welcome, Thorgo.
Thank you.
Shakespeare said it best. He said, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." And to me, that opens up the door to the whole world. So, Wicca is a neo-pagan religion. Neo-pagan, the 1940s, or of the Celtic Society. Where? Where did Wicca begin?
Wicca itself, you definitely would characterize as a new or modern religious movement. Certainly when in the 1950s, when it was first becoming public after the repeal of the witchcraft laws in Britain, it was characterized as an old tradition, but you can look at it historically or analyzing our rituals and things and tell that things that Gerald Gardner gave, and he was the founder of Wicca, modern Wicca, mm-hmm. That he was pulling things from different sources. Certainly, I think it would be fair to say that we are a modern religion who draw our inspiration to the Celtic more generally to Celtic pre-Christian societies, mm-hmm. but we are open to draw our spiritual inspiration from any society because in many ways Wicca is almost like a framework and allows for lots of diversity and individual belief while allowing us to practice together.
So it's an amalgam of many religions and historically an amalgam of history as well.
In a way, as you can see, and when we talk about our spiritual year, you can see that plays a part in our spiritual year as well.
You know, it's very odd, but as I read, and I did not know a lot about it myself, so as I read about it, tried to do my homework, Thorgo, I really felt that it was very much like the American Indian religion in that deities are all around us. They're in everything. It's not a matter of God as such, but it's a way of life, and inspiration comes from all around us. Would that be a fair statement? I don't know. Help me.
That can be a fair statement, certainly for some. One thing that's always going to be true when you talk about Wicca is whatever I say as a generality will be broken because someone will have a different belief. One thing in the neo-pagan...
I don't think that's just Wicca.
No, it's not just Wicca, but there's a broad spectrum, and certainly that would be true for a lot of people. In the way we view deities, there's many deities, but there's also the god and the goddess. It's kind of a duality where you have...
Well, that's right, and we were talking about the Golden Bough, and if you haven't read the Golden Bough, folks, you need to do it. It's an old book, but it's still used as a classic textbook in religion, and it talks about the evolution of religion. And originally there were two deities, not just one God. Before we got to the monotheistic Judeo-Christian tradition, there were two deities. And the Lord and the Lady are still prevalent in Wicca, and there is a symbol for each of those, and they're here on the table, and I can turn them around so you can see them. There we go.
Yeah, that's the triple goddess. It represents the moon. You have the moon in its growing or waxing phase, which represents youth, and its full phase, which would represent a mother, or full of life, and it has on its waning phase as it's diminishing, and that would represent older age. And
so it's more of a
crone.
nurturing symbol as well as the female symbol.
Yes, it represents the triple goddess. We see the goddess is in three aspects. She's as a maiden, as she's younger, and we all go through life when we're younger, and we don't, you have all your aspirations and all the things, and then she's the mother for all of us, but then she's also the crone or the grandmother for all of us, and so that's wrapped up in that symbol, and it's derived from the moon.
And how about the Lord?
That's the symbol for the horned god, and it's gold because of the sun, so it represents the sun, and then with a crescent on the top to symbolize the horns. The horned god is in many European cultures and in the Mediterranean, we have horned deities that were of the forest and of the hunt. You have Pan and Cernunnos and Dionysus, and so with all these, the horned god in Wicca and how we view the god is inspired a lot by the gods of the forest.
See, but that's so interesting. But the basis is the sun and the moon.
Yes, the basis is definitely the sun and the moon. The sun is definitely the god, and the moon is the goddess as far as representation. I was thinking about before coming here, I don't think it's coincidental that we know now as modern humans that the sun is vastly larger than the moon and in much closer proximity to us. But from our perspective on Earth, they appear as the same size. And when you think of it, they both have a very important role in life on Earth. And we wouldn't have life on Earth as it exists without both of them. And so I think that's a nice analogy. And
it's an excellent analogy, and it goes back to religion as rather a way of life, as part of the persona. And I think that's kind of interesting. But we can talk about monotheism, the all and the one.
Yep.
We can talk about a deotheistic, and that's the two. And we can talk about polytheistic, because there are other gods and goddesses kind of around there too, Isis and Thor and Aphrodite and all of those. And then an atheist view. So where are you as a Wiccan?
I would say that myself and most of the people I know who are Wiccan would fall kind of in between, because it's in between a couple of things. Certainly, I believe in the all or the one or the none, depending upon how you look at it, that we all are a part of.
Yes.
We all of creation is a part of this. The material and the spiritual worlds all encompass this metaphysical all that is everything. But there is definitely a difference in a consciousness between the goddess and the god, and I think, I think in the Jewish holy text, some things are right. Obviously, we are created in the image of the gods, the goddess and the god. We're male and female. Mm-hmm. It makes much more sense to me, and it's much more beautiful to view it that way. But so there is all goddesses. Many Wiccans will agree with, and many neo-pagans with the philosophy that all goddesses are the goddess and all gods are the god. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept of I'm an employee when I'm at work, I'm a friend to my friends, I'm a son to my parents, I'm a father to my son, I'm a husband to my wife. Mm-hmm. I have many hats, and I have different personas, and many times I may seem to have different personalities when I'm acting out on each one of those aspects of myself. Right. So the gods and goddesses, they have different aspects. We view it as an archetypal concept, and so we see that there's gods of the hunt and gods of war and gods of goddesses of love and gods of the home and hearth and all these different fallen archetypes, and you have individual gods. Another way we look at it is the way that we can access deity is through different individual deities or the god and goddess in general. That to actually access and have inspiration in our lives, the all is too big.
Let's pull out a word here.
Okay.
And the word is inspiration. Mm-hmm. In other words, it's not so much the god or the goddess or the this. It's the inspiration that the concentration on that particular deity or whatever brings to you.
In a way, it can be, but then also I recognize that through to me, they are separate entities in a way. They are the same, and then they are also separate, much like light is a particle and a wave.
So there is room for individual thought within Wicca.
Yes, there is, and that's where there are plenty of people that are strong polytheists, that each individual deity is each individual deity. They have been since the beginning or whenever, and that they are not, all gods are not all the same God. There are people that believe that, and we can all function together very well because our ritual structure and the things we have allows for us to work together even if we have differing opinions.
I want to go back just a minute and discuss the term neo-pagan. Would you do that?
Neo-pagan came up to differentiate between the pagan cultures that we talk about, the ancient cultures, with people who are now taking up the mantle of wanting to identify with those cultures, much like with Wicca, where we draw much inspiration from it. Or there are also lots of reconstructionist religions that are taking information that they have from the past and trying to recreate.
But in all religions there are reconstructionists.
I would agree, but I have a very close friend who is a reconstructionist of the Nordic path, and they call themselves heathens, and they use that. But to him, it would be a very strong polytheistic, and he tells me I'm wrong. But that's okay to me.
That's okay. That's okay. Because Ralph Waldo Emerson put it best: people see only what they are prepared to see. And I think that often, and that's really the major point in talking to you today, is to make the point that Wiccans are not Satanists. And I think that's sometimes confused. Don't you think so?
I think so. Certainly, we are not Satanists. The Christian concept of Satan is not in any way an aspect of our religion. It's not, doesn't play a part of it. It's not there. We don't have anything in common with what people who call themselves Satanists do. Some of our symbols seem similar, but these are very ancient symbols that they've adopted. So.
Well, and one of them is a pentacle.
Yes.
And the pentacle is a 5-pointed star. Talk
Yes.
about that just a little bit, because each of those points represents something.
Yes, the pinnacle for Wiccans and many neo-pagan religions is a representation of the 4 elements. You have for us, red represents fire, yellow represents air, green represents the earth, and blue represents water. And then the 5th point at the top represents to us spirit, or the unification. And to me, and to many, the pinnacle has a representation for the universe and life, because without all of the aspects, and we work with metaphysical aspects of the elements, without all the aspects of the elements together with spirit or divinity, we would not have life.
But you have the Lord and the Lady, and in the middle the yin and the yang.
Yeah, that's my personal sigil.
But don't you think that's really what brings it all together?
Yes. I believe, to me, metaphysically, we all can. There's masculine and feminine aspects to everybody, and so we all can identify with the Lord and the Lady, but it's that mixture and blending. And so for me, that symbol in the center, that's my symbol, very unique to me.
But I think it says what's necessary to be said.
Yes.
It brings it all together.
Yes, it does. That's why I came up with that.
Yeah. In the bottom, there's a Hebrew word, Elohim.
Elohim, yes, that's the name of my group, my coven. And I chose it because there's, actually in his writings, Gerald Gardner has a lot of affinity for the Jewish people, and he mentions Jewish aspects quite a bit. But Elohim, to me, if you look at the meaning of it, it's the Hebrew word that represents for goddess, but it also means many gods or many goddesses or all gods and goddess, and it was a nice representation for the name of my coven. It just really came out to me.
It says it all.
Yes.
Thor. The Wiccan creed, I think, is something that we need to talk about too, and it harm none, do what you will.
Yes, that's the read or advice. It's our version of the golden rule. do unto others as you would do unto them, but yourself as well. Oftentimes people will harm themselves horribly when they're trying to do something right for someone else. So our aspects that we try to uphold is not to harm anybody, including ourselves in our actions. It's the advice to give you before you do something, you try to work out and think about what you're doing. Is it going to harm you or anyone else? Now, certainly,
I'm a Rotarian, and part of the Rotary creed is it good for all concerned?
yeah, there would be another way of phrasing the exact same thing.
So, the whole idea is that we're more alike than we are different.
Yes, I see more similarities with philosophical schools and religions than I do differences, certainly.
Here's a little part that is a little different, and we talk about magic. And magic in Wicca is to make the bendable world bend to your will. You think so?
That could be, magic can be defined as any act of your conscious will causing a change. So, if you broaden that definition enough, then getting up and walking to get a drink of water is an act of magic because your will is getting you to move up and move.
Gets you to overcome inertia.
Right. So that's a little bit too broad, but
yeah.
I would say in Wicca we are very active. Our worship isn't quite the same as Christian worship, and we are active with what we do things. So we, to us, praying about something, asking for it is perfectly fine and valid, but then also we will take matters into our own control. Whether or not these are only psychological tools or what it's changing things really in the world, that's another argument. I know that for me it works.
Well, I think a lot of it is when you talk about magic and a spell and this, that, and the other thing, I think that it reinforces your faith in your power to make something happen. And I think the intensity of that faith and power does make things happen.
Yes, I think so. The same thing with prayer. I've seen examples where Christians are doing things that I recognize very blatantly as a magical spell, but they don't understand that to their perspective it isn't. We see that all the time. I watched the documentary Jesus Camp, and in that, I think it was for Supreme Court justices or something that they were not happy about. The children they had names, or they were putting the name associated with a justice to a coffee cup, and all the children were yelling and screaming and hollering at the coffee cup, and then they shattered it. And to me, that was blatantly a magical spell, but to them, it wasn't. It was something else. Certainly, the definition for magic gets kind of really personal to each person, but it's essentially just trying to take control of your life.
Tell me what the crystals do.
The crystals are a representation of the earth. They have different things. Certainly, in Wicca, we absorb anything that we like, and so the crystals kind of come from the New Age community as well, and they have different crystals we feel have different properties, whether or not we use them for calming or whatnot, and they also are just really nice representations of the earth and remind us of the earth in which we live.
It reminds you of something.
Yes,
see, that's the key.
Most things that we use for our altar are representations, and they just represent different aspects.
Do you believe that Wicca is a religion more of ritual or of theology?
Ritual. It's Wicca is an experiential religion. My faith is based on my experiences in ritual. That is where the true mystery lies, and it's different than a book theology, certainly. That's where we can practice together and have differences in how we really feel in our theology, and we can evolve our theology over time and not change our religion because.
So you underscore your theology by ritual.
Right. You have to have the ritual experience. Our experiences in ritual are what really drive our religion. The
broom. I think I said to you, what do you do with it? And what I thought was very interesting, and you said what?
Oh, we use it to cleanse and consecrate areas. Before we get ready to have a ritual, we want to make it ready and make it clean. And so certainly you would clean the area, but then with a ritual broom, we go through and we get rid of all the negative ideas or energies, or just get it ready to where we're going to, when we do ritual, essentially we erect a temple, and God and Goddess come down and join us.
But don't you think in getting ready, you get yourself ready too?
Oh yeah, we do that beforehand. That's all part of ritual. You know, we all have rituals. We have rituals when we get up and go to work. We have rituals, things that prepare us in our state, and the elements of ritual that we use when we're getting together and having a rite together are all there to get us in the same place at the same time and to get us ready.
And when you talk about rites, we need to talk about the greater Sabbats.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 of them, the Wheel of the Year.
Yes, the Wheel of the Year. There's 8 Sabbats, 4 greater and 4 lesser. And the Sabbats really talk about the life cycle of the god. The Sabbats are solar events, they're celebrations of the sun. And we start off in Celtic culture, October 31st or All Hallows Eve, or in our vernacular, Samhain, is the beginning of the year. But typically I like to talk about the Wheel of the Year starting with Yule, because that's December 21st, 22nd. That's the birth of the god. And so, and the goddess gives birth to the god. And then we have that's one of the minor Sabbats. It's the winter solstice. Then for the major Sabbat after that is Imbolc, which is right around Groundhog's Day on February 1st. And that's a time when then the goddess is renewed. She's the maiden, and the god and goddess are young, and they're kind of frolicking. At that time, after the birth of the god, then we have 3 fertility festivals. And the goddess and god get to know each other, and then they consummate their relationship on Beltane, which is one of the major Sabbats on May 1st. Between that is Ostara, which is right around March 21st, 22nd.
Well, and the equinoxes are thrown in there.
Right. That's
that
Ostara's
the equinox. Yeah.
And then May at Beltane, they consummate the relationship, and those are 3 fertility festivals. Then at what we call midsummer, or the vernal solstice, we have, or not vernal, vernal. The Letha is the midpoint, and it's, the god is at his height.
Would you agree if I said to you that if you define yourself as a Wicca, then that means that you follow earth or nature religion, and you see divine manifest in creation?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely, if we finish out the next 3 Sabbats are harvest festivals. And it's all about the sacrifice of the god, because in Wicca, our god, he dies and is reborn. He made it, consummated his relationship with the goddess. That was a holy union. And the goddess is pregnant after that. And then at the time of the fall for the harvest, the god is seen, the grains go from green to golden. And at the time in definitely pre-Christian and before, plants were brought from the Americas. In Europe, everything, the basis of their food was grains. And so,
well, and the harvest and the change of the seasons, or you would starve to death. Right,
harvesting, it's all getting ready for the harvest. And the god is seen as being embodied and transferring himself to the grains, and then he is sacrificed.
But see, that's not unlike, parts of that are not unlike the religion of ancient Egypt.
No, they're all very similar.
Yes.
It makes ancient agrarian societies, they saw the same thing, and they viewed the same way, and then the cycle just repeats over again.
Well, the earth is the temple, and the plants and the creatures are the partners and teachers.
Right, and we were talking earlier about how we're an amalgam. Mm-hmm. We celebrate 8. It makes really nice sense because there's the 4 solar events with the equinoxes and the solstices, and it's nice balance, but there's no ancient culture that celebrated all 8. And you can see when you, if you look closely at the history and what we do at each one of the Sabbats, the traditions are drawn from different cultures. So that's where we are in amalgam and bring things together.
On the other side of this pentacle is a tree.
Mm-hmm, the tree of life.
It is a tree of life to all who hold on to it. Mm-hmm. Its supporters thereof are, that's Hebrew. Mm-hmm. That's taken directly from the Hebrew Bible. See, to me, again, I have to say it again, we're more alike than we are different. And if we pick and choose the likenesses, I think we find that there's really not much reason to be at odds with anyone.
No, no, and I know in my personal spiritual viewpoint, I view all religions are perfectly valid. It's just different people have different ways that make sense to them to go to deity, and if a different way of making communication and having access to divine works for someone else, I have no problem with that. I think it's a beautiful thing. Everyone should.
But you have to go back to the read, and it says, "It harm none, do what you will."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really is the basis for the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Really, it is. What is the Book of Shadows?
Book of Shadows is I'm more dubious on the historical significance of the Book of Shadows, but the Book of Shadows is supposed to be where all of your rights and things. You know, historically, the idea being if you meet and join a group and you're going to have a teacher and learn your way, you would copy their Book of Shadows for what you do at the Sabbats and how you do different spells or different songs and rites, and you have all that written down. And then it's because of the persecution time. Lots of our culture for Wicca and witchcraft is based on the witch burnings and the persecution history. And so the idea is a Book of Shadows because it would be hidden. And so that's why it's called Book of Shadows. If you look at, for witchcraft, I mean, certainly high magic, you know, you had nobles and whatnot doing it, but for witchcraft, it would have been the commoners, and how many commoners in the 1400s could read. It's a term we use for where we collect all our things. Most of the people I know nowadays, they have
so it's sort of a cookbook of
yeah, it's kind of a cookbook. Most people I know today, they have a cyber Book of Shadows.
Yeah, okay.
Where they keep everything on their computer.
How many are in your coven?
I have 9.
9? Mm-hmm. Well, are there very many Wiccans in this area?
It's hard to say, because there's certainly you have people that practice in groups and people that practice as solitaries. There's plenty of people who identify themselves as Wiccan, but it just is such a thing for their family and everything else that they will never really talk about it. So it's hard to say. I know from people I interact with and what I've seen, there's probably a couple thousand neo-pagans in the area, and whether or not they call themselves Wiccan or not is a question.
Well, I tell you, it has been very interesting. I can't thank you enough for coming and bringing all of the things for us to see. And I quote from Eden McCoy, who is a Wiccan and writes a lot on the subject. He said, "We respect life, cherish the free will of sentient beings, and accept the sacredness of all creation."
Thank you.
How much nicer could it be?
I couldn't do any better.
I think, as I have said, thank you to you for being with us. I think it's so important to know not just some of our neighbors, but all of our neighbors. It's the differences that make us interesting. So thank you, Thorgo. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being with us as we have explored a religion that we probably didn't know too much about. Thank you.
Welcome.
See you soon again.